Knights. A kind of warrior that probably needs no introduction. Knights are perhaps one of the most iconic warriors of all time. The image of the knight in shining armor and, and tales of chivalry. Knights also have a symbiotic relationship with many fantasy stories, and this can be traced back to at least as early as Tolkien's Legendarium with the Knights of Dor Amorth. Here's the thing though, the term knight and what that entails and what that looks like is actually way more broad than you might think. Welcome to Peter's No Cap History. This episode we're going to be talking about knights. This is a book that is part of my childhood. You can see it's kind of seen better days. And this is one of the things that got me into history. It is a very good book. It's not perfect. Let me elaborate what I mean by how broad knights are. Look at how by centuries the knight changes so drastically. And again, that's just off a cursory glance. You can get even more specific than that and still get different results. To really kind of illustrate, the variety and differences, I'm going to be talking about 3 different knights from 3 different points in time. The first one is the early Middle Ages, as in you're talking about 800s, 900s, 1000 AD. Talking about these guys. These are the Normans, specifically the gear. We have there's a lot of chainmail, these very long shields. These were some of the earliest true knights that came about with the invention of the stirrup, the culmination of gradual military tactics changing to prefer cavalry warfare more. It was one of these things that kind of gave William the Conqueror here the advantage. And, his conquest of England kind of helped clinch a lot of that. As a brief aside, in Tolkien's Legendarium, he intended his setting to look more like early Middle Ages and not later Middle Ages. A more book-accurate Gondor would probably look closer to this than what the movies did. Come from someone who loves the movies. Just so it's clear. So that's just one example, and realistically the most popular one out of the bunch. Let's go a little bit more obscure and more interesting. This is from the High Middle Ages, as in the 1200s and 1300s. And by the way, this is something I've seen on fantasy art Twitter. There's been an outcry for High Middle Ages style fantasy stories. This is going to be my little part in trying to incentivize that. Now these guys are from Aragon, which is basically a Spanish kingdom. Think Barcelona and Catalan. I mean, look how different this is. It's similar to the knightly images we've seen before, but there's differences. The shields are different, and there's so much color. These helmets were painted. Seriously, like I said in another video, I love color. The coat of arms you're seeing on these guys are actual coats of arms. This is how groups of Spanish knights would have looked at this point in time. I don't know about you, but I think it's positively beautiful. These two things are both knights, but they look so different. As a funny example real quick of something that isn't an actual thing from history, you see this guy here with the horns? That is a knight of the Teutonic Order. As iconic as that look is, that is not historically accurate. It is suspected that this particular look came from a propaganda film from the 1930s known as Alexander Nevsky. I mean, obviously, in a fantasy story, you can use it if you want, but just know that that's not actually a thing that someone actually wore. Lastly, we're going to go to the 1400s in Italy, because, well, look at these guys. Do I need to articulate why they're awesome? I mean, they're so over the top, I love it. Look at these crests. Look at the plate armor, look at the coat of arms. I don't know about you, but I think this is positively beautiful. This is from the Battle of San Romano. Seriously, I love this so much, and I wish it was explored more, because, again, when most people think knights, they think stuff like this or this. But this is so similar, and yet still so different, so fresh. In my own fantasy story, God Shards, I actually have a scene where our heroes encounter a group of these guys, because these are actually mercenary knights. Yeah, mercenary knights were a thing. They were called lances spazzette, or broken lances. And yeah, they were basically wealthy individuals who fought for the highest bidder. Again, this was only 3 and a half examples of knights and how they can just look so differently. You can go to any country in Europe and get something different if you know where to look. Even among knights in one part of the world, there is still just so much untapped potential. What we see used as a reference point in fantasy stories is merely the drop of the bucket of potential of stuff that could be used in stories. Tune in next time when I talk about other warriors from other parts of the world that could be an equivalent of a knight if you want to make sure that your fantasy setting is conforming to a certain region, but you don't know what to use instead of knight. But that is all for now. I will see you guys later.